My name's Ray Miller, and I'm 74 now. I'm living in a little rental outside Trout Lake, Washington, at the base of Mount Adams. It's October 2024, cold drizzle on the windows, that blue kind of evening. I shouldn't be telling this, but it's been years, and I'm tired of carrying it alone. This started at my old cabin, 8 miles up the logging road. Back then it was just me, a woodstove ticking, and the wind in the firs. One ordinary night, I was washing a chipped plate, listening to the fridge hum, when I heard 3 slow knocks from the dark behind my shed. Not loud, just patient. People hear Bigfoot and think hoax videos and campfire lies. I know what they think. I did too. But I fed a Bigfoot for 30 years. And one night some hunters found out. Late February 1982. South side of Mount Adams, Washington. Snow, clear and bitter. You'd see my place then if you had a camera. One sagging cabin, one lean-to shed, smoke going up thin into a white sky. No tracks but mine in the snow. Inside, the radio mumbled country songs, and the wood stove clicked as it cooled. I sat at the little table with a chipped ceramic mug, turning my wedding ring around my finger. It had been 3 years since the truck went off the road in that storm. I lost my wife, my baby boy, and whatever part of me knew how to sleep through the night. The silence up there made their absence loud. One afternoon, the radio cut to a call-in show. Some logger talked about huge tracks and a damn Bigfoot crossing a service road not far from Trout Lake. I snorted, turned the volume down. I told myself people made up Bigfoot to give the woods teeth. Outside, the trees creaked in the wind, and the shed door rattled once. I checked the deadbolt twice that night, just the same, wondering why the word Bigfoot bothered me more than the storm. And long after the radio went to static, I lay awake, listening. Sure, I'd heard 3 distant knocks I couldn't explain. Late September 1984, Trout Lake General Store. Overcast, light rain. You can almost hear the door buzzer when I say this. I walked into the little general store, boots leaving wet prints on the cracked linoleum. Smell of coffee, diesel, and damp wool. A couple of guys in camo were leaned on the counter, talking low. Up near Miller's Ridge, one said, "I'm telling you, those weren't bear tracks. Real wide. Could be that damn Bigfoot they're on about." The cashier glanced at me. "You hear all this Bigfoot talk, Ray?" she asked, sliding a paper bag of flour toward me. I laughed it off. "I don't believe in Bigfoot," I said. "We got enough real problems without inventing hairy ones." But on the drive home, the wipers squeaked across the windshield, and those words sat wrong in my mouth. Bigfoot. The way they'd said it, nervous and excited like kids. Back at the cabin, the porch light threw a weak amber pool on the wet gravel. I carried the groceries in my old woven basket, listening to the drip of rain off the eaves. Sometime, after midnight, just as I was drifting off, I heard it. 3 slow, spaced-out knocks, way out beyond the shed. Not thunder, not a branch falling. 3, clean. I told myself it was wind again. I got up, checked the lock on the back door twice, then lay back down, heart going hard, trying not to count those knocks in my head. Late May 1985, behind the cabin. Steady drizzle, soft light. The rain had turned the yard into brown soup, the kind that sucks at your boots. I was fixing a loose plank on the shed, hammer tapping quick, when I noticed the print. It was sunk in the mud just off the corner, deep, wide, with toes where toes shouldn't be that big. No claw marks like a bear, just a huge, flattened impression, water pooled in the arch. A faint smell of wet dog and riverbank hung in the air, stronger than usual. I straightened up, my back popping, and looked at the tree line. The woods were quiet in that loaded way. No birds, just distant wind-moving needles. Bear, I muttered. Or, I don't know. I don't do that Bigfoot stuff. The word came out anyway. Bigfoot. Saying it out loud made the hairs on my arms stand up. I grabbed an old tire tread and laid it over the print. Like hiding it could make it normal again. That night, I left the porch light on until dawn. its flickering bulb buzzing against the dark. Every crunch of gravel, every creak of the house, I told myself it was nothing, just settling. But as I lay there, watching the shadow under the bedroom door, I could swear I heard slow, heavy steps pause by the shed, then move away again, and I kept listening for those 3 knocks that never came. Early November 1986, cabin and shed, frost on the ground, clear night. You'd see your breath that night, hanging in the flashlight beam like cigarette smoke. The generator had cut off, so the cabin was quiet. No fridge hum, just the tick of cooling pipes. I was finishing a plate of fried potatoes when it came. 3 knocks, closed this time, not out in the timber. Right on the shed wall, heavy knuckles on old wood. 1, 2, 3. I froze, fork midway to my mouth. The sound vibrated through the floorboards. Bear, I whispered, though bears don't knock polite. I took the old rifle from the rack by the door, stepped onto the porch. The air smelled of cold dirt and pine pitch, sharp in my nose. The shed loomed at the edge of the flashlight's reach, boards silver with frost. "Who's there?" I called, feeling stupid. The silence after felt thick. The 3rd time I heard a low, almost human kind of whine from inside the shed. My knees went loose. I eased the door open with the rifle barrel, just a shape at first, hulking in the shadow behind stacked cordwood. No detail, just size. Then the smell hit. Wet fur, fish gone just to the edge of bad, and damp moss. I saw one huge hand slide back from the light. Bigfoot, I thought, the word slamming into my chest. No, can't be. There's no Bigfoot. There's no... I backed out, heart rattling, and shut the door. Locked it from the outside. Then I went to the fridge, hands shaking, and piled raw beef mince into an old metal pan. I set it just inside the shed and latched the door halfway. Inside, something shifted. A low, breathy huff. The pan scraped once. I sat on the porch steps till my fingers went numb, listening to the soft sounds of chewing in the dark, telling myself it was still just a hungry bear I'd never seen. Mid-August 1994, cabin and creek. Warm evening, mosquitoes whining. By 94, feeding time was just part of the day, like washing dishes or bringing in wood. The camera in your head would see me at the counter, bare bulb above the sink, hands slick with raw beef mince, portioning it into a dented blue enamel bowl. Outside, the creek whispered over stones. The screen door creaked as I stepped off the porch. The air smelled of warm dust and cedar, the way summers do up there. I'd leave the bowl by the shed door now, no rifle, no shaking hands. Sometimes I'd add a trout I'd pulled from the creek, its silver skin catching the last light. I'd knock once on the door frame, more habit than courage, and step back. By then I thought of it as a he, would wait. Always waited until I was back on the porch, pretending not to stare. Then there'd be that soft pad of huge feet on gravel, the shadow slipping between cabin light and shed. The smell of wet fur and river mud would drift over. Short, low grunts timed with the scrape of the bowl. In town they talked, missing chickens, a goat gone. "Maybe it's that Bigfoot crap," one guy said at the cafe. "All that Bigfoot talk scares tourists away," the owner shot back. "You and your Bigfoot stories," the sheriff told a drunk who claimed he'd heard howls. Then he looked at me. "You out there alone, Ray. You see anything weird, you call?" "I don't believe in Bigfoot," I said, lying so easily it scared me. That night I washed the bowl under warm tap water, listening to the fridge buzz and the faint shift of weight inside the shed. I realized I was more afraid of being alone again than I was of a Bigfoot living 10 yards from my bed, and I still couldn't explain why sometimes on the edge of sleep I'd hear 3 knocks replay in my mind like they were waiting to happen again. Early October 2009. Cabin kitchen and town bar, cold wind, early dark. The years slid by. My hair went white. His didn't, far as I could tell. The radio's AM band faded in and out over static as a local station ran a segment on mysterious tracks near the Gifford Pinchot. "Some say it's a Bigfoot," the host laughed. "Call us if you've seen the big guy." I turned it off. The words scraped at me now. Later that week, I went down to the bar in Trout Lake. Needed fuel, coffee, a human voice. Neon beer signs flickered blue over knotty pine walls. The place smelled like spilled ale and fried onions. At a corner table, 3 hunters hunched over a phone. One jabbed at the screen. Look at that stride. That ain't no... man. Another laughed, nervous. If that's a Bigfoot, we're gonna be famous, boys. The third guy glanced up. Old Miller place is up that way, right? Near your shack? He asked me. Yeah, I said, feeling my throat go dry. Just elk up there. No Bigfoot. They smirked. You'd tell us if you had a Bigfoot in your shed, right? One joked. I smiled with half my mouth. Didn't answer. Back home, I found stacked stones by the tree line, 3 high, balanced 2 neatly. The shed door had new scratches low on the frame, parallel, deliberate. Inside, he shifted when I opened it, giving off that familiar smell of damp leaves and old fur. Hunters are getting nosy, I told the dark. Bigfoot hunters. You understand that? A low chuff, almost like a sigh, came back. That night, the wind came up hard, branches tapping on the roof. I double-checked the lock on the shed, then the cabin, then the shed again. In the distance, faint as memory, I thought I heard hounds baying and voices calling to each other, and I lay there, eyes open in the dark, wondering how many more times I'd get away with saying I didn't know anything about a Bigfoot. Late January 2003, inside the shed, snowstorm, power out. The storm knocked the lines out just after dusk. No TV glow, no radio, just the howl of wind around the cabin and the occasional crack of a tree shedding ice. The bowl was almost empty of beef, and the trail was too deep to drive to town. I grabbed a kerosene lantern, its glass smudged, and stepped into the whiteout. Snowflakes hit my face like wet ash. My breath came out in clouds. The shed loomed up dark, roof sagging under snow. I pushed the door, and the hinges squealed. Inside was black. I lifted the lantern, the little flame hissing softly. I didn't see the shovel under my boot. I stepped, slipped, the world tilting. I grabbed for anything and felt my fingers close on fur and bone. He caught me. A huge hand wrapped around my forearm, hot and rough like bark soaked in warm water. Another braced my shoulder. My face was inches from his chest, which rose and fell in slow, heavy breaths that smelled of raw meat and creek water. For a heartbeat, the lantern light swung up, catching the curve of a massive silhouette, the gleam of one dark eye. Then he turned his head away from the light, almost shy. My brain screamed bear, man, monster all at once, but none of those fit. It was a Bigfoot, I heard myself say inside, clear as a bell. No question. But it was terrified too. His hand trembled against my arm, not from cold, from me. Easy, I whispered, voice shaking. Easy, Bigfoot. I'm not gonna hurt you. He let go, stepped back into the dark, the fur brushing the rough boards, leaving that smell of wet earth and old leaves behind. I backed out, closed the door gently, and leaned my forehead against the cold wood, lantern sputtering. Outside, the wind screamed. Inside, I could hear him breathing on the other side of the wall, slow and steady. And for the first time, I wondered if I was the scary story he told himself at night. Late February 2013, yard and tree line, bright, cold morning. The storm 2 nights before had laid a clean sheet of snow over everything. No prints, no tire tracks, just the sparkle of ice in the pale sun. When I stepped out with my coffee, steam rising from the mug, I saw them. A line of depressions from the timberline straight to the shed, each a crater with defined toes, spaced like a man's stride but longer, deeper. The edges were crisp, shadows blue inside. I followed them with my eyes, not my feet. The air smelled sharp, like cold metal and wood smoke. My hand went to my pocket. I'd joined the century by then, had an old flip phone. I opened it, hands shaking, and snapped picture after picture. Tracks by the stump, tracks crossing the gravel drive, tracks vanishing into the darker rectangle of the shed doorway. Later that day in town, a different group of hunters cornered me in the parking lot. One held up his phone. "You see prints like this up your way, old man? Folks say that's Bigfoot sign." I looked at the photo. Tracks in snow, just like mine. "Could be hoax," I said. "People love that Bigfoot nonsense." He grinned. "We're heading up there this weekend. Gonna find ourselves a Bigfoot, make YouTube money." Back home, I stood at the shed door, phone in hand. Inside, he shifted, the floorboards creaking under his weight. "I got pictures," I said softly, "of you, of your feet. You know what that means. Other folks have them too. They want a Bigfoot more than they want a deer." A low rumble came from the dark, not angry, more like a question. That night I sat at the table, lamp throwing a yellow circle on the wood, and watched the little video I'd taken when I finally screwed up the nerve. A few seconds of his back slipping between trees, snow falling around him, that low, distant whoop. I saved it, then dropped the phone into an old coffee can in the pantry. I told myself I was keeping it for proof. But my hands shook because I knew it was just another way to lose him. Early November 2015. Cabin driveway and kitchen. Fog, rut season. You could hear them before you saw them. Truck tires on gravel, slow and heavy. Dogs barking, sharp against the muffled fog. I stood at the sink, washing the blue enamel bowl, smelling raw beef and dish soap, and my heart sank. Headlights bloomed on the window. Then 3 trucks, muddy and loud, pulled into the yard. Men climbed out in orange vests, rifles slung casual. One dog strained at its leash, nose in the air, whining. I stepped onto the porch, screen door creaking. "Afternoon," I called, voice too bright. "Ray," said one of the guys from the bar, breath smoking in the cold air. "We're tracking something big, real big. Dog's got the scent coming off the ridge. Smells wrong, like wet dog and fish, like a damn Bigfoot." He laughed, but his eyes were serious. He sniffed the air. "Smells like that right now, don't it?" I swallowed. The familiar scent was thicker tonight, riding the fog. "You're just smelling my trash," I said. "Nothing but a lonely old man up here. No Bigfoot." They pushed past anyway, boots crunching on frozen mud. "We'll just have a look around, no harm. If there's a Bigfoot, we want him on our wall before Portland hipsters do." Inside the kitchen, the clock ticked loud as I poured coffee into mismatched mugs. The dogs whined, noses pointed toward the shed. "Got anything in there?" One hunter called from outside, his voice distant through the walls. "Just junk," I said, throat tight. "Tools, old lumber." From the shed came a low thud, like a knee brushing the wall. The men fell quiet. The dog barked, frantic. My chest felt hollow, protective. I'd lost a wife and a baby to one stupid road. I wasn't about to hand a Bigfoot over to a truckload of beer and bravado. "Coffee's inside," I said. "Warm up first." They filed in, fogging the windows, rifles clinking against chairs. We sat at the table, steam rising from cups, the room smelling of coffee and wet wool. Outside, the fog thickened, pressing against the glass. I strained to hear through the talk and laughter, but underneath it all, I could still pick out the slow shift of weight in the shed. Same night, yard and tree line. Midnight, heavy fog. They didn't stay long. Coffee ran out, and the itch to hunt took over again. "Thanks, Ray," the tallest one said, slapping my shoulder. "If we bag a Bigfoot, we'll bring you a steak." I forced a smile. "You don't want a Bigfoot. Just go home." They laughed. "You and your Bigfoot stories." Then they were out the door, boots thumping on the porch, trucks starting up, engines growling into the fog. An hour later, the sound came back, but farther off. Engines idling, dogs barking, echoing weird in the mist. The world beyond my porch light had shrunk to a circle of pale yellow on wet gravel. I slipped to the shed door, hand on the cold latch. Inside, he moved, restless. I could smell him stronger than ever. Wet fur, blood iron, cold earth. His breathing was fast, agitated. "Listen," I whispered through the crack. "You have to go. They're out there for a Bigfoot. For you." Silence. Then, from the other side of the door, 3 slow knocks. Not angry, not asking for food, just answering. the same rhythm from 30 years before. My eyes burned. "Please," I said. "Bigfoot, go." Outside, one of the hunters let out a fake whoop, long and high. Another answered with a laugh. Then, shockingly close from the trees behind my place, came a real whoop, low and trembling. He was closer than ever, braver than ever. Meeting their call. The dogs went wild. Shouts erupted. "That's it! That's the Bigfoot! Move in!" I yanked the shed door open a crack. Saw only a suggestion of huge shoulders slipping past, then branches snapping as he bolted into the fog. "Run," I whispered, barefoot on the cold porch boards. 3 shots cracked the night, each one punching a hole in the silence. The dogs barked, then went. Quiet. The fog swallowed the echoes, leaving only the ringing in my ears and the drip of condensation from the eaves. No triumphant yelling. No Bigfoot dragged into the yard. Just quiet. Too much quiet. I stood there until my feet went numb, staring into the gray, the smell of gunpowder and cedar hanging light in the air. And I whispered, to nobody I could see, "I'm sorry, Bigfoot, I'm so damn sorry." 3 days later. Cabin and shed. Low clouds, thawing snow. The trucks came back at dawn, mud spattered on the sides, dogs worn out and quiet. I watched from the window, curtains barely parted, the cabin stale with the smell of cold coffee and unwashed dishes. They showed me a tuft of dark hair in a plastic bag. Laughing, the sound brittle. "Didn't drop him," one said. "But we winged something, left a trail of blood like a horror movie. Maybe scared that Bigfoot clear to Canada." The bag passed from hand to hand, hair pressed against the plastic like a secret. "You sure you didn't hear anything, Ray?" another asked, squinting at me. "Any Bigfoot screams in the night?" I shook my head. "Just wind," I said. "You boys and your Bigfoot." They left. The gravel settled under their tires, and the mountain took them back. When the sound faded, I went to the shed. The hinge squealed as always. Inside, the air was colder than it should have been, emptier. The bowl lay on its side. In the dust on the wall, near where my head would hit if I leaned there, was a single smear of dry, dark blood in the shape of a huge hand brushing down. At my doorstep, half buried in slush, lay a little construction of twigs and feathers, woven in a rough loop like a child's wreath. It wasn't there the day before. I picked it up with shaking fingers. It smelled faintly of smoke and damp fur. "Bigfoot," I said, barely audible. Not like a monster, not like a joke, more like a name, like Tom or David, like someone I had failed. I never saw him again. No whoops, no breathing under the boards. The shed went back to being just tools and mice. That night, I took the flip phone from the coffee can, scrolled to the short, shaky video of his shape moving through the trees. My thumb hovered over send to and then over delete. I set the phone face down on the table instead, the lamp humming overhead. And in the silence, I could not tell whether keeping that Bigfoot on a 2-inch screen was mercy or another wound. October 2024, small rental house near Trout Lake, drizzle, street noise. Now, if you filmed my life, it would look smaller. Beige walls, thin curtains over a parking lot instead of fir trees, a refrigerator hum that never quite shuts up, the oxygen concentrator wheezing softly beside my armchair. I still wake up at 3 a.m. most nights, listening for crunch on gravel that isn't there, for a weight against the wall that belongs to nobody on the other side. The old flip phone sits in a cigar box in my dresser. I take it out sometimes, run my thumb over the battered plastic. The battery's dead now, of course. The video's trapped in there like an insect in amber, a little moving ghost of a Bigfoot only I've seen. I don't tell many people. My niece thinks I just got lonely after my wife and the baby died. She's right. But that's not all. When I say Bigfoot now, it comes out soft. Not like a campfire story. Like I'm remembering a face. I fed a Bigfoot for 30 years, I told the hospice counselor once. He smiled and wrote something down about grief. But I did. The cost was simple. Sleep, trust, any sense that the world was ordinary. The gain was also simple. I got to care for someone again, even if he wasn't human. The rain taps on the window tonight, steady as fingers. Somewhere in this town, kids are watching fake Bigfoot videos on their phones, laughing, and I sit here, listening to the machines, knowing I'm the only one in this building who has waited for a real Bigfoot to come home. Same night. Living room. Late. Quiet. You asked why I never sent that video anywhere. Why I never called a TV station or those podcast people or the college. Truth is, after those hunters smelled blood, every camera pointed at a Bigfoot started to feel like a rifle. Proof doesn't come free. It comes with trucks and dogs and men who think the woods are theirs. I'd already lost a family once. I wasn't going to help them finish off a Bigfoot that trusted my doorstep. So the only Bigfoot I've got left is in that dead phone and in here, in the way I still flinch when someone knocks on the door, even if it's just the nurse. Some nights, on damp ones like this, the pipes in the wall tick. Expansion or whatever the landlord calls it. The TV upstairs murmurs through the ceiling. A car door slams outside, echoing up the stairwell. And then, just when I'm about to nod off in this chair, I'll hear it clear as a bell on the far wall behind my head. 3 slow, patient knocks. I know how it sounds. Maybe it's old wood. Maybe it's the neighbor's bed frame. Maybe I dreamed the whole damn thing. But I close my eyes, and I see snow and amber light and a shadow slipping into the trees. And I hear my own voice whisper Bigfoot like an apology. It wasn't a dream. It was a warning. And even now, all these years later, I still hear the 3 knocks.